You look around and see drawers full of papers, notebooks with old notes, cables from devices you don't even remember buying, closets where the doors barely close because they are filled with clothes you don't wear, tablecloths that only came out once on a special occasion, towels you keep just in case, and piles of sheets that are still there even though some no longer match anything. The corners of your house have become small storage spaces for things that were once useful, but now only take up space and collect dust. Every day, without realizing it, you walk past those objects and feel an invisible weight on your shoulders. You promised yourself that one day you would take it all out, that you would do a deep cleaning, that you would organize every corner so that your home would feel lighter. But that day never comes. There is always something more important to do, there is always something that postpones the decision. And in the meantime, the clutter remains, slowly growing, filling your home with unnecessary things and your mind with a silent anxiety that exhausts you without you noticing. Because what we often don't realize is that clutter not only takes up physical space, but also mental space. It's not just a pile of things that aren't organized, it's an emotional burden. Every stored item is a pending decision. Every overflowing drawer is a reminder that there are tasks you left unfinished. Every corner filled with unnecessary things is a constant distraction that steals energy and peace of mind. And at the end of the day, when you finally have a moment for yourself, instead of feeling relaxed, you look around and see everything you still haven't done. You see the pile of clothes you should sort, the books you should decide whether to keep, the decorations you've left on the shelf just because you've gotten used to seeing them there, even though you don't even like them anymore. And the worst part is that every day more things are added. An impulse purchase at the supermarket, a gift you don't want but feel bad throwing away, a brochure you kept because maybe one day you'll look at it. But today we are going to change that. Today, you're going to decide that your home will no longer be a storage place for things you don't use. Today, you're going to take control and start creating a space that brings you peace, that makes you feel light, that makes you want to take a deep breath and enjoy every corner without the feeling that something is pending. This video is for you, householder who spends every day organizing and reorganizing without finding the definitive solution. For you, who seeks a home where calm reigns and not chaos. Here are 9 tips to help you stop accumulating things and transform your house into a haven of tranquility. Because you deserve a space that makes you feel good. You deserve a home where you can rest without feeling overwhelmed by everything around you. You deserve the peace that comes with the lightness of having only what you truly need and love. The first tip is brutal but necessary. Admit that most of the things you have, you don't need. This is an uncomfortable truth, but a liberating one. We hold on to objects with the excuse that someday they might be useful, but if we're honest with ourselves, most of those things have been sitting unused for months, even years, without serving any real purpose in our lives. Think about that kitchen drawer full of utensils, the lemon squeezer you used only once, the blender with accessories you never took out of the box, the baking molds you bought with the hope of making homemade cookies, but that have been gathering dust because you actually prefer to buy the cookies already made. How many times in the last year have you used each of those objects? If the answer is once or never, then you don't need them. Go to the closet. Open the doors and look at each item. How much clothing do you have that you haven't worn in months? Dresses that no longer fit, blouses that don't go with anything, pants you keep just in case you lose weight, or just in case they come back into fashion. That clothing not only takes up physical space, but it also creates a mental burden every time you see it and think about what you should do with it. And what about the shoes? Do you really need 5 pairs of sandals when you always end up wearing the same 2? Look at the decorations in your house. The shelves are full of figurines you bought on a trip, were gifted to you years ago, or just placed there because you didn't know where else to put them. But do you really like them? Do they truly bring you happiness, or are they just there because you never stop to question whether they should stay in your home? 80% of what we keep is rarely used, and that is the reality. We hold on to things out of fear that we might need them in the future, but that future almost never comes. And in the meantime, the present gets filled with unnecessary objects that get in the way, take up space, and create visual, emotional, and mental noise. Accepting this is hard because it means letting go. It means recognizing that we've accumulated more than necessary and have postponed decisions. But it's also an act of freedom. Every object you let go of is one less weight in your life. You are not your things. You don't need a house full of stuff to feel complete. What you really need is a home where you can breathe easily, without feeling that clutter and accumulation are consuming you. Today is the time to start letting go. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Look around and choose one item you know you don't need. Take it, thank it for the time it was in your life, and say goodbye. It's a small step, but I promise you it will feel like a huge relief. Second tip, establish a rule of entry and exit. This is one of the most powerful habits to prevent clutter from coming back again and again. It's simple, but it requires discipline. Every time something new enters your home, something old must leave. Why is this rule so important? Because the problem with accumulation is not just what you already have, but what you keep adding without realizing it. Think about this. How many times have you gone shopping and come back with something you didn't really need? A blouse on sale that you thought was pretty but doesn't match anything. A set of cups because they were a good price, even though you already have more than you use daily. A toy for the kids that ends up abandoned in a corner after a week of excitement. If every time something new enters, something old leaves, the balance is maintained. You bought a new blouse, choose one that you no longer wear and donate it. You acquired a new set of sheets, let go of the old set that is worn out or that you simply no longer like. You bought a new appliance, do you really need to keep the old one just in case? This applies to everything: clothes, toys, kitchen utensils, tools, furniture, decoration. If you don't have a rule for things leaving, every item that enters accumulates. At first, it seems harmless. A couple of purchases here, a gift there. But over time, without realizing it, you end up back at square one, a house cluttered with things you don't use that just take up space. And most importantly, when you apply this rule, you begin to shop more consciously. Before bringing something new into your home, ask yourself, am I willing to get rid of something to make space for this? If the answer is no, maybe that purchase isn't so necessary. This rule not only prevents clutter from building up again, but it forces you to be more intentional with what you own. Instead of surrounding yourself with objects that are just there, each item in your home will have a real purpose and a defined place. No more mindless accumulation. No more corners filled with things that are just in case. If you apply this rule today, you will start to notice the difference. Every item that enters will be a conscious choice. Every item that leaves will be a step toward a lighter and more peaceful home. Third tip, do an emotional cleanse of your items. This is where many people get stuck. It's not the clutter, it's not the amount of things. It's the emotional attachment that keeps us from letting go. We keep things because they represent moments, people, memories. But here's something you need to understand. Memories live in your heart, not in objects. Think of that dress you wore on a special occasion, but no longer fits. Or those old stuffed animals that were given to you years ago and now just collect dust. Or the letters, movie tickets, souvenirs, and small objects you keep in a box without even looking at them for months or years. All of that represents something, but it's not the memory itself. Letting go of it doesn't mean you're forgetting. It means you're giving yourself permission to live in the present without carrying the weight of the past. How to let go without guilt. Start by holding the item in your hands. Look at it, feel it, connect with the memory it evokes. Ask yourself, do I really need this item to remember that moment or person? If the answer is no, thank it. Yes, just like that. Thank it for the role it played in your life. Say out loud or in your mind, thank you for being a part of my story. Thank you for what you gave me. Now I let you go. This small ritual has incredible power. By doing this, you'll realize that you don't need to cling to things to keep the memories alive. You can let go without losing what really matters. If there's something that has strong emotional value but you don't want to keep it physically, find a way to honor it without it taking up space. You can take a picture of it before donating or gifting it. You can write about the story behind that item in a journal so you can always remember it if you wish. But don't let the fear of forgetting make you live surrounded by things that only keep you stuck. Objects are not your identity. They don't define who you are or what you've lived. What truly matters is inside of you. So dare to let go, because the moment you release the weight of the past, you create space for peace and lightness in your present. Fourth tip, the 5-second rule. You look at that object and hesitate. Should I keep it? Should I throw it away? What if I need it later? That inner dialogue is what has led you to accumulate so many unnecessary things. Indecision is the biggest enemy of order, and this is where the 5-second rule comes in. It's simple but powerful. When you have an item in your hands, decide in less than 5 seconds whether it stays or goes. Don't overthink it. Don't look for excuses. If you have to debate with yourself, deep down you already know the answer. Think about that blouse you haven't worn in years. You hold it and ask yourself, have I worn this in the last 12 months? If you have to think about it, if you hesitate, the answer is no. Let it go. That extra blender you have in the pantry, just in case. When was the last time you used it? If you can't remember, you don't need it. That drawer full of cables and chargers for devices you don't even use. You pick one up and think, what was this for? If you don't know instantly, you don't need it. Your first impression is almost always correct. If an object is truly useful or important in your life, you'll know it without thinking. But if you hesitate more than 5 seconds, deep down you know you don't need it, you just find it hard to let go. This method eliminates procrastination in cleaning. No more "I'll decide later." No more "maybe someday I'll use it." That someday rarely comes, and meanwhile, that object takes up space, creates clutter, and steals mental energy. Start with something small. Open a drawer and apply the 5-second rule to everything you find. If you hesitate, it goes out. If you have to justify why you're keeping it, it's a sign it's not essential. You'll find that, with practice, it becomes easier. Your mind reprograms itself to make quick and effective decisions. And best of all, you'll start to feel lighter. Because every object you eliminate is one less weight in your home and in your mind. 5th tip, have a limit space for each category. Clutter doesn't just happen because you have too many things, but because there isn't a clear limit on how much is enough. Without a cap, there's always room for one more. One more plate in the kitchen, one more towel in the bathroom, another pair of shoes because they were on sale. And little by little, your house fills up with things that exceed your actual capacity to use them. This is where this tip comes in. Define a limit space for each category of objects. Think about your wardrobe. How much clothing do you really need? It's not about an arbitrary number, but what you actually use day to day. Maybe 10 blouses and 5 pants are more than enough. If that's your limit, every time you buy something new, something old must go. If your closet is full, don't buy more clothes until you make space. In the kitchen, how many plates do you need for your family? If there are 4 people, maybe 8 or 10 plates are enough, including a few extras for guests. If you have 30, many of them are just taking up unnecessary space. With shoes, it's the same. If a new pair comes in, an old pair must go. It doesn't make sense to have 20 pairs if you only wear the same 5 all the time. Do this with everything. Towels. Define how many you really need for your family and don't accumulate more. Bed linens. How many sets of bedding do you actually use? If you have more than needed, the rest is just taking up space. Bags and backpacks. If you have more than the ones you regularly use, why keep them? Beauty and makeup products. If you have expired products or ones you never use, it's time to cut back. This method forces you to be more mindful of what you own. When you set limits, you avoid uncontrolled accumulation and, most importantly, you learn to value what you have instead of filling up with things that just get in the way. If you apply this principle to every corner of your home, you'll see how clutter disappears and how everything starts to flow better. Your house will stop being a storage place for just-in-case items and will become a space where each thing has its place and purpose. 6th tip. Make donation a habit. There is something powerful about giving. Not only does it help you free up space in your home, but it turns the act of letting go into something positive. Instead of feeling like you're losing something, you feel like you're helping someone else. And when you donate frequently, detachment becomes a habit, not an occasional event. Start with a box. It doesn't have to be big, just a designated space for things you no longer need. Place it somewhere visible, maybe in a corner of the closet, by the front door, or near the entrance. The important thing is that it's in sight, reminding you that there's always something you can let go of. Every week, without fail, place at least one item in that box. Don't wait for a general cleanup. Don't wait for the clutter to become unmanageable. Make it part of your routine. A pair of shoes you no longer wear, a blouse that's been in the closet for months without being worn, toys your kids no longer play with, books you've already read and could inspire someone else. When the box is full, take it to a charity, a church, or a shelter. There are many people who can really use what's just clutter for you. And when you see the impact of your donation, you'll feel a different kind of satisfaction. This habit not only transforms your home but also your mindset. Instead of clinging to material things, you start to see them for what they really are, objects, temporary tools that can serve their purpose in your life and then move on elsewhere. It also changes the way you shop. When you know that every object in your house has a cycle, you become more selective about what you bring in. You no longer shop impulsively because you know that what comes in, at some point, has to go. If you have children, teach them this habit from a young age. Let them participate in choosing toys to donate. Explain to them that other kids will enjoy something they no longer use. When kids learn to let go, they grow with a healthier relationship with objects and a more generous mindset. Regular donation creates a constant flow of detachment. Your home stops being a place where things accumulate endlessly and becomes a space of constant renewal. And every time you fill a box and deliver it, you'll feel like you're not just clearing your home, but also your mind and heart. 7th tip: learn to enjoy the empty space. We are used to thinking that a full house is a warm house, that walls must be covered in decorations, that shelves should be packed, and every corner should have something. But in reality, empty space is a luxury. It's air, it's calm, it's freedom. When you start letting go, you realize something incredible. You don't need to fill every space for your home to feel welcoming. In fact, when you remove the excess, everything that remains starts to have more meaning. Your table without piles of papers on top becomes a place for gathering, not a storage for things to do. Your cleared closet gives you clarity every morning instead of overwhelming you with options. Your tidy kitchen feels light, ready to be enjoyed instead of being a battlefield full of things you barely use. Learning to enjoy empty space is learning to enjoy tranquility. A home with fewer things is not an empty home. It's a home where everything has its purpose and its place. It's a space where you can breathe without feeling overwhelmed by accumulation, where you can move without dodging piles of unused objects, where your mind doesn't get tired from the constant mess. Take a moment. Look around you. Where could you create more space? Not to fill it with something else, but to let it be. A shelf with fewer decorations, a wall without pictures that don't mean anything to you, a clear table. Minimalism isn't about having the least possible, it's about having just enough. Surrounding yourself only with what you truly love and use. And when you achieve that, you feel an incredible lightness, as if you finally let go of a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying. So, the next time you feel the need to buy something else, ask yourself if you really need it or if you're just trying to fill a void with things instead of with peace. And when you start enjoying the empty space, you'll notice that what truly fills your home isn't the objects, but the sense of calm, order, and freedom you've created. 8th tip: reduce the flow of incoming items. It's easy to fall into the trap of accumulating without realizing it. Marketing, offers, promotions, and the habit of impulse buying surround us every day. A pair of discounted shoes, a buy one get one free deal, or even just the fact that something is cheap leads us to fill our home with things we don't really need. But the real problem isn't just with what we already have, it's with what we keep allowing to enter our home. To break this cycle, it's crucial to start reducing the flow of incoming items. That means not only getting rid of what you already have, but also setting conscious barriers for what you continue to bring in. Every time you see something that catches your eye or receive a gift, stop for a moment and ask yourself, do I really need it? Don't be swayed by impulse. Many times we buy just for a fleeting desire, but we don't stop to think if that object has a real purpose in our life. Will it be useful to you in the coming months, or is it just a temporary distraction that will end up forgotten in a drawer? Then ask yourself, does it bring me value? Value isn't just about price or immediate usefulness. Think if this object will truly bring you long-term satisfaction. Will you enjoy it every time you use it, or will it be relegated to just another item that occupies space without serving a meaningful function? Value also refers to the quality of life that object may bring. Does it truly make you feel good, or is it just another piece that causes stress because you have to find a place for it in your home? Lastly, ask yourself, where will I store it? If you don't have a proper place for that object, it will likely become part of the clutter. If you can't assign a specific space for it in your home, it's a sign that you don't need it or that it doesn't belong in your life at this moment. The lack of space not only affects the organization of your home, but also your mental peace. When you don't know where to put something, you leave it anywhere, creating piles of things that occupy space without purpose. By being more aware of what you allow into your home, you'll be one step closer to a home without overload, without clutter, and most importantly, without that constant feeling of having to manage things that don't bring anything real to your life. The secret is in reducing what comes in, so that what you already have can be appreciated, cared for, and enjoyed. Ninth tip: create maintenance routines. Clutter isn't something that appears overnight. It's a silent enemy that infiltrates little by little. A few things here and there, a piece of clothing left unsorted, a book that doesn't go back on the shelf. And before you know it, all that small clutter turns into a mountain of things you don't even remember accumulating. And without a maintenance routine, everything quickly overflows. What truly makes the difference between living surrounded by clutter and having a balanced home is prevention. If you let things pile up uncontrolled, soon you'll feel overwhelmed by the task of cleaning and organizing everything at once. That's why establishing a maintenance routine is key. It doesn't have to be a big task or a deep cleaning every day. The key is to do small checkups regularly. Each month, pick a specific area of the house and dedicate a few minutes to doing a quick cleanup. It doesn't matter if it's a drawer you don't open anymore, the shelf of kitchen products you've forgotten about, or the closet full of clothes you no longer wear. Just dedicating a little time each month to a checkup will prevent clutter from building up and will free you from the emotional burden of a big cleanup. Make this checkup a habit and, if possible, add it to your calendar. It could be the first weekend of every month or a day you know you'll have time for. The important thing is that it becomes as natural as doing groceries or cooking. You don't have to do it all at once. Just focus on one area and ask yourself, have I used this in the last month? If the answer is no, it's time to let it go. Be honest with yourself. Does this item really add something positive to my life, or does it just take up space? This constant process not only keeps clutter under control, but also gives you constant control over the space you inhabit. You will no longer feel that your home is slipping through your fingers or that you have to spend an entire weekend cleaning. The sense of well-being that comes with an organized home is incomparable. Remember that a space free of unnecessary things is also a space to enjoy more fully, where everything has a place, and everything there has a purpose. Additionally, performing regular quick cleanings also helps avoid the mental stress that clutter generates. You don't have to wait for something to become a big task to manage it. Keeping your home in balance will allow you to enjoy a clear space, free from overwhelm and overload, contributing to a much more relaxing and harmonious environment. Each item you decide to let go of is more than just an object. It's one less weight you carry, one less burden you drag. Those little items that accumulate over time, the ones you keep out of nostalgia, fear of not using them in the future, or simply out of habit, end up becoming an invisible burden that affects you more than you realize. Every time you open a drawer and find something you don't even remember keeping, you feel that little pressure, that reminder that there's something else you haven't managed. And that subtle, but constant stress builds up over time. The worst part is that this weight doesn't just affect your home, it affects your mind. Every time you see that clutter, that accumulation of things, your brain is working harder than it should. The space filled with unnecessary objects creates mental chaos that prevents you from thinking clearly, feeling calm, and enjoying the peace you deserve. It's a constant reminder of what you haven't yet resolved. Your mind is also tied to those objects, and every time you look at them, you feel more exhausted, as if you're still carrying them around. But when you decide to let go, when you face the truth that you don't need all of that, you experience a release. You leave behind what no longer serves you, what no longer has a purpose. And in that moment, you feel an incredible sense of relief, as if you've let go of an invisible weight you've been dragging around for years. Today is the day to start. Not tomorrow, not next week. Change begins with a decision and small steps. The first step is recognizing that everything we accumulate isn't just physical, it's emotional, it's mental. And the sooner you make that decision, the sooner you'll see the benefits. Your home will transform into a space that truly reflects who you are and what you need, and this will not only impact your surroundings but also your mental and emotional well-being. Remember, your home should be a refuge, a place of peace, not a storage for unnecessary things. Your well-being is tied to what surrounds you. The clearer your space, the clearer your mind will be. Each thing you choose to let go of not only frees up space in your home but also creates space in your life for what truly matters. Don't underestimate the power of starting today. Your home, your mind, and most importantly, your well-being, will deeply thank you.